Hello everyone, it's me Maya and welcome to my channel. This month is Black History Month and I wanted to do at least one video celebrating African American authors, which is what I'm going to do today. Today I'll be highlighting 10 of my favorite African American books by African American authors. They are not all novels, some of them are nonfiction, some of them are poetry, and towards the end, I want to also tell you about some of the African American books I plan on reading, since there's such a wealth of talent in the African American community. So, my top 10 favorite, and I will talk a little bit about each book. The first section I want to talk to you about are the poetry. And the two books are For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough by Ntozake Shage. And this is a choreo poem. It's kind of like a play, and it tells the story of a number of African American women, and they all represent a color, or they're represented by a color. So the woman in red, the woman in brown, the woman in blue, and each person has a story, and they go through their story in poetry form. You get to see a lot of different experiences from these women and kind of learn more about what each woman had to go through. A lot of the stories are tragic. A lot of these women go through a lot of heart-wrenching things, but it's beautiful to see that there's a sort of beauty in what they're going through. It gets you in your heart, and I definitely recommend this for anyone who wants a shortest book to get into with African American literature. Short and powerful. The next book is The Dream Keeper and Other Poems by Langston Hughes. Poetry, Langston Hughes. Do I really need to say a lot about why this is a book that you need to read? This is a very amazing recommendation that you definitely just need to check out. And I just love the artwork on the front as well. I hope you can see that. So it's Langston Hughes. You have to read at least one of his poems before you leave this earth. The next section is YA, and I only have one book, and that's Jason and Kyra by Davidson. And I love the storyline where the jock guy and the brainy girl, and they get together for a project or something, and they're just thrown together and they get to see each other's side of things, and that's exactly what this book is about. Jason is this jock with a slightly verbally abusive father, and Kyra is the brainy girl, and they come together for this paper, and of course she thinks that he's this stupid jock, and I think he thinks she's probably this know-it-all, and they kind of see that their worlds are not so cut and dry as they may have thought. And I just love romance, and I just love that it's just a beautiful story. Like the High School Musical era of kind of going against your clique and really seeing all the other personalities out there. I just love those stories that explore that. The next book is Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, and this is definitely for the older side story of Janie Crawford. And it begins where she's kind of trudging back into town. She just ran off with this younger man, and everyone has their own viewpoint as to what happened to her. They think the guy stole her money or what have you, but it's really delving into her romances and her failed romances, and that one romance that could have been something, but sadly it did not go the way that you would have liked. But this is like classic literature that you need to read. I think a lot of these books are books that I've only read in the last couple of years, and having that literature at my disposal from these books and all the other books that I'll be recommending, I think it's very important to highlight, which I'm glad I'm doing today. The next book is Waiting to Exhale by Terry McMillan. This is definitely more on the adult side. Seriously, keep that in mind before you pick this one up. If you're not into an adult romance book, stay away from this one. But this was a book that I read, I think, this year or the end of last year. And this was the book that kind of got me to thinking that representation in literature is so important, and being able to say that this is something that every African American woman in her 30s, I believe that's what this book is about, but just African American women in general has probably had to deal with in their life. But this book follows 4 girlfriends who kind of have their own misadventures in romance. It's very funny kind of seeing them sort of stumble through their romance, but I found it very wonderful to have a book that talked about things that I could relate to. It's so refreshing to have that sort of book where you can see yourself in the artwork and the story. Our next book is one of the earliest books I read, was Sweet Whispers Brother Rush by Virginia Hamilton, and I think I enjoyed this one as well because it has a tall character as well. Sweet, also named Tree, is tall like me, and just having another girl that say, "Hey, I look like you. You're African American and you're tall and you're just dealing with your life," and it's like, wait, that's me. This is a middle grade. I would say middle grade. Yeah, high middle grade, where it doesn't really know that it's a middle grade novel. It doesn't treat any of the topics in it as if you're a kid. It treats it as is and kind of gives it to you and lets you kind of muster through it. It deals with a lot of heavy topics, but it's necessary. Tree, who is the main character, is taken back in time through this magic mirror, which you can see in the cover, to kind of through her past, and kind of helps her reconcile some things that she didn't remember about some things that happened. She kind of realizes more about her mother's abuse of her older mentally retarded brother, and it's like a awakening sort of book, and it's a coming of age story where Tree is really has to grow up and really understand what's going on in her world, and kind of really see that her world is not as big as she thought it was, and it's not as concrete as she thought it was, and it's an eye-opening book just for anyone to read. Another book that is really more towards younger kids is Gone From Home by Angela Johnson. This is a short story collection. It's very quick. You can get through it in about a day. If you can see these pages, they are definitely meant for younger kids, and you can get through it very easily. There are a lot of heartbreaking stories in this. I don't know what it is with me and heartbreaking books. I love books that tear at the heartstrings. I don't know what it is. I think it's something where sometimes I just love to have a good cry. Don't ask me. I don't know. One more book, which is also a short story collection, is Bloodchild and Other Stories by Octavia Butler. Sadly, I don't own it, and I really want to, but that was my introduction into Octavia Butler. If you don't know, she is a prolific author. She basically paved the way for African American women in the science fiction genre. She was the first. She started it all, and it's just amazing to see how her career has transformed. Sadly, she has passed away, but just to see her legacy through her books, but just to see the effect she has on the genre as a whole and where she started. The Bloodchild and Other Stories short story collection is probably, I want to say 10 or 11 of her short stories. They're creepy and they kind of delve into social commentaries and everything, so there's a lot to her stories. There's more than just, oh, this is a story about communication, or this is just a story about aliens. There's more to it, and I just love her writing. I wish I owned more of her work, but she kind of helps me get more diverse in my reading. And the last 2 books are nonfiction, and if you know anything about me, I'm not the biggest nonfiction enjoyer, but these books were definitely kind of changed my viewpoint of what it means to be nonfiction and to tell a story. The first book is The Pact by, I'm going to read off their names, Doctors Sampson Davis, George Jenkins, and Rameck Hunt. I hope I didn't pronounce those wrong. But this story is about a group of 3 guy friends when they were younger, and they made a pact that they would all become doctors. Living in the inner city, you can only imagine how difficult it was to keep to that pact. This kind of tells their story of their journey of, okay, them trying to make it through. It's very inspirational to kind of see not just their end point of, oh yeah, we're doctors and we made a pact and we made it. This is how hard it was for us to make it. The final book, which should be no surprise, but it might be if you don't know me too well, is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. This book, just, if you don't read any, every booktuber who ever ends a list will say if you don't read any books, read the last one. This is one of those books, because this book kind of does everything that all the other books do. It's a story of heartbreak and power and just heart-wrenching and just so much that it does everything, like romance and trying to find love and trying to find acceptance, all in one book. And I really appreciated the story because it's the real story of Maya Angelou. I know sometimes we kind of sugarcoat her story of like she's this wonderful poet and author and she's amazing, but this woman went through a lot, like a lot, and I think we kind of don't think about that because she was sexually abused when she was younger. She was a young mother, and we kind of like brush over that, but she doesn't in her story. She tells her true story. She says, I made mistakes, I went through a lot, but she's here, and she has these lessons that she can share with us, and I thoroughly appreciate having a story where I think for me as a person, I appreciate it when you don't just tell me, I got here, you can too. You tell me how you got there, and tell me how do I get there too. And it's really amazing to sort of see the process of everything she went through and how much she overcame, and it's just so, it just makes me so happy to see that she makes it to her second level. Now we're going to get to my TBR, which is part 2, depending on how long this video is. So I'll probably cut it off into 2 parts, and the TBR will be tomorrow or Saturday. And I hope you will come back for that. I want to thank you for joining me for this video. I hope you have enjoyed these recommendations. I hope you have enjoyed this. If you did, please hit that like button. If you would like more of these videos, please press subscribe. I make new videos every Wednesday, sometimes Saturday, and I hope to see you then. Bye, guys.